Hey guys, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to another Ascension Cluster stream. This time we're over on ACL. So we've been doing our ARC tournament and PvP tournament and stuff. So I'm trying to get back into that. But they are doing quite well. So that's fantastic. This evening we have a very special guest, Mr. Frank Miniaci, aka Malibu Dude. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Stressed. You think that Hollywood's fun? You should try freaking the gaming industry.
Oh, I'm quite aware. It has its own nuances, very similar.
Well, we're working on some projects and stuff, which we can probably make brief mention of later. And I believe next week I will be interviewing your lovely wife, Karen.
You'll be what?
Interviewing your lovely wife, Karen, to hear about her experiences in Hollywood.
That's true.
So get the whole family together.
She's got the she'll bring the acting perspective.
You didn't act? What's up, happy cats? How you doing? Alright, so I think we have everything ready. Is that you, Willow? Sorry, people changed their Twitch name.
It sounds a little echoey in here. Is it
I think it's just my headset.
the headset?
Alright, let's hit the... And thank you to God Toys for the sub to Mr. Frank here. He's now here and now a paid subscription to my channel.
Fantastic.
How you going, God Toys? Alright, let's boot it into ARC. Let's hit this. Sorry, we'll get started in a second. I'm just still in pre-flight checks. But we're actually on time for tonight's stream. That's good.
It's a very good thing.
Oh, and thank you for suggesting Simon as well. That was a really good interview. They loved that.
Oh yeah, I mean, Simon is like one of those guys you can do follow-ups with. I mean, he's got so much interesting information, I swear. Yeah, definitely have to have him back on.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be booking him back on. Hopefully he brings his friend Keanu Reeves with him. But that was his suggestion, not mine.
He'll bring Neo.
Neo. Well, in the latest Matrix, wasn't Neo a video game designer?
Think so. But I mean, obviously people know him from a lot of similar projects in more recent times. In fact, he's doing another installment of oh God, what is it?
John Wick.
Yeah, well, John Wick. Yeah, what's he on? 4 or 5? 4, I think.
4, yeah, 4. Thank you for the subs, Mab. We appreciate it. Look at you, Frank, inspiring the masses. Alright, so I guess your early career, you were in radio before you were in film, right?
What'd you say?
I said your earlier career, you were more into radio than film, right?
Yeah, so you want me to kind of give a rundown a little bit of who I am?
Absolutely. Let's impress him. Matt knows people.
I'm working on my second or third lifetime, so no, people would. It was really funny. I remember the first time that I ever had to do a bio. It's not like it's so impressive. It's just that it's the people that have like 50 different things they're interested in, well, that's what I did. So, I mean, kind of in the same entertainment space, but I mean, I sit there and I always tell people, well, I'm either on my second or third career. I don't know which, because at 15, because my dad died when I was young, I mean, I had a hardship. I was driving. I had my first apartment. I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff when people were still in high school. I was in high school and actually in radio at the same time. So, kind of an interesting, I just had some really great mentors. I mean, I think that the thing that I'm very grateful for is some of the amazing people that I've met throughout my career. But I started in radio uh, in Dallas and Los Angeles, so really two good sized cities, and I worked for like the couple of the biggest broadcasters at the time. For your for your audience that doesn't listen to radio, at one time radio was a big deal. Just keeping it real, because I mean, I still, as they like to say, program for people even half my age. So I mean, because that's kind of where the entertainment is. I mean, even had my few minutes here in the gaming world. I was the beige cop in Reservoir Dogs, the international version of the game that came out 10 years after the movie was released. So they put all those, I forgot what they call those points or whatever, and they put you on the green screen. So anyway, they had me in one of those suits, and so forth, so they could do that stuff. So, I mean, I've had my touch of whatever with gaming, but yeah, no. So I started in radio. I started in Dallas. I mean, I'm from Los Angeles. Had some really, worked for a legendary radio station there. I mean, same thing in Los Angeles. I mean, like some of the top people in the industry did really, really well there. And when I left radio after, I don't know how long it was, at least 14 years or so, I went into the editorial or publishing. So I worked at Hitmakers. I worked at Radio and Records. I worked with Billboard Entertainment Marketing. So I did that stuff for a number of years too. So that was kind of cool. I mean, my whole thing was I wanted to. God, I started off as an actor, as a child actor, if you will, and I really kind of thought I'd end up on the TV and film side, but I was DJing, doing private parties and working in nightclubs and working on the air and so forth. I mean, it seems like when you're, a teenager, like in your early 20s, I mean, it seems like you can do 5 things at once, So I did a lot of things at the same time. And, but I eventually got back around. I was doing TV commercials for radio stations, ended up doing some reality shows. I was on reality shows. I was producing or coming up with concepts for reality shows, and then working on movies and television shows and commercials, and kind of came full circle. And a lot of my friends were involved in tech at the time and so forth. So I was fortunate enough to have quite a few people in that world, and the gaming world for that matter, back in the day, which I'm not even sure, Matt, you may know some of those contacts as well too, but like, not as far back as Atari, although one of my bosses, her dad invented the first Game Boy.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of cool.
You still talk to these people, right?
She's on my friends.
I think
on social media.
I think that's. I don't mean to think ahead, but I think that's someone we should get on here. Is the inventor of the first Game Boy, or at least his
She
daughter.
wasn't. It was her dad. But I mean, being she's obviously, I mean, but I mean, maybe I don't. I don't know his situation, but I mean, she would be very interesting probably to have on. That's when I was doing some. We were doing commercials and rollout for games on with Ubisoft and some of the old companies, EA Sports and stuff like that.
Nice. So what got you to
Back in the day.
transition into producing film and television?
Well, the thing that's interesting about like the term producer, I mean, when people think of the producer, sometimes they think of like the money person, which can be true, you know, if you're an executive producer and such. But a producer is kind of like a person that can see like all the different pieces where they go. And if they're a really good producer, they can work with the story, they can work with the talent, they can work with like the director, they can work with the writer, they can get the financing done. They're kind of like the person that can take the lead a lot of times and see where all the pieces go together. And considering I've worn a lot of hats because I've been on the creative side, on the financial side, on the performance side. So I just think that it was just a natural for me. I mean, I don't really. A lot of people sit there and we'll talk like if they were performers, like it's like if you're a singer, if you're an actor, or whatever. It's like oh, you know, and they're all disappointed or something. And it's like for me, it was like a natural progression. You know, it just kind of made sense and so forth. So I could have been one of those talking heads once again on TV shows that your gaming buddies here probably don't know, like Entertainment Tonight and things like that. I mean, back in the day, there were a couple of the original hosts that were friends of mine. I almost went that direction. So, but I finally just decided that I probably need to be on the other side, meaning like other side of the camera, other side of the mic, other side of the studio, whatever you want to call it.
So I'm going to ask you something that I've never ever actually asked you before, and it has my curiosity in the near 10 years we've known each other. How did you come up with the name Fastlane? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so it's cool. So yeah, I'm Italian, Sicilian. I mean, I like Ferraris and Porsches and all that crap. But just like any other Italian kid. But it's not a testosterone, kind of meaning like a male, like Fastlane, whatever like that. It really came from my niece. My niece helped me name the company. It was really funny because I was here in LA, so she was like used to get the nickname Hollywood. Even when I was in Texas, they used to call me Hollywood. And don't like that name too much now, but back in the day it was kind of fun. So she just always thought of me as like Hollywood producer, blah 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 blah, or Uncle Frank, and so forth. She actually, I was gonna get her involved in animation. She's an amazing artist, and she had an interest in animation. So anyway, long story short, she sent me this picture frame for Christmas, and it was a street sign that said Fast, and then it said LN, Fast Lane.
Huh.
And and my picture was in it. And so that was my Christmas present, right? And I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool name for the company, Fastlane. And I thought like 2 words, and I'm like, no, I'll do 1 word. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to get that name. I mean, everybody's thought of that or whatever, and so forth. And so when I went to look to incorporate or set up basically the company, and there wasn't one. I couldn't believe it. There wasn't one in Los Angeles. I'm like, huh? And so, I mean, there was Fastlane something or Fast something or, So anyway, so I just like, okay. So, yeah. So basically, I would say that my niece helped me name my company.
Huh.
It's more of a sentimental story than just a fast cars. Although I have come up with I created a reality show for NASCAR and for racing and things like that. So in fact, it's really hilarious. Small little side story is that NASCAR actually wanted at one time to like have me. They were trying to acquire the rights to my company name. They wanted to buy it from me.
Huh. And of course you told him to bugger off, right?
I did. I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of them at the time. They made it really difficult to get the show off the air. A lot of egos over there. I love NASCAR. It's a love-hate relationship. They finally have come kind of full circle, and now I think they're doing some really cool stuff. And I think auto racing's awesome. I like kind of all sports, to be honest with you. I grew up around sports, and especially I played Texas high school football and all that stuff. So big on sports.
So I have to ask you. You told me you said you were involved in the financing side of things, and a couple of years ago you told me a funny story about financing and a shoebox. um, Are you allowed to share that story, or because I found that really funny?
I'll
actually,
do the edited. I'll do the edited version. Definitely not naming names.
Okay.
But actually, I've got one that I can add to that. That's just as weird.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, what was it? What was it? Get Shorty, the movie Get Shorty, and I'm not sure who here has seen Get Shorty, but it's just there's been movies made, about financing. I mean, basically getting money to make movies or to do stuff in the entertainment industry, whatever, television, whatever. And so, everybody thinks of financing. They think of banks, or maybe they, investors, or they get it from someplace, right? Maybe they think, Netflix, pays for it, which they do a lot of times. But then there's always these independent people, and sometimes they pay their way to get involved. So it's like, well, hey, I got $50,000 and stuff like that. And, they might be a decent actor or something like that. And it's just kind of like, well, hey, we could use the money to help with the project. So anyway, there were two instances, man. I'll give you one more that's even more bizarre. How about that?
Okay.
So the long and short of it is, so there was a guy that had 50 grand that he wanted to invest, but he was going to send it in a shoebox. And with somebody on the plane, and I was like doing what I feel like I'm doing a drug deal or something here. I'm like, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What, it's like, you can't put this in the bank or whatever. And Matt, I can't remember, but it seems, I think this is before, marijuana was legalized in some states. And so, it was really hard to move money if you made it legally in one state and it's not so in the other state. So that presented a weird thing. But the weirdest thing, believe it or not, beyond that, Matt, there was a former Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, not mentioning names, and she wanted to be in a project that I was working on. It was kind of like a Bring It On movie. Once again, a movie maybe your audience doesn't know, may know, cheerleading movie. Anyway, so she said she would invest and so forth, and there was a small role we could give her anyway. So I was like, okay, cool. So we met her for a meeting, the producers, at a Starbucks in the Valley here in Los Angeles, and she comes in and she has one of those manila envelopes, like a big envelope, and it's just bulging and so forth. And I'm like, what the hell she got with her? And I looked inside, and it was all $100 bills, $50,000 in $100 bills in the envelope in a Starbucks. And I'm like going, wait a minute, what the hell is this? I'm like, and she goes, I don't need a receipt. And I'm like thinking, why don't you need a receipt? What the hell is this? So yeah, those are the fun stories, Matt. They're not as boring as what financing is. Financing is a very boring, but it can be very creative. And obviously, whether you're in the gaming world or whatever it is that you're doing, without money, nothing moves. So sometimes you have to be creative, but those are two of the weirdest ones.
So what's your favorite project you've worked on up to date? Not future projects, but projects you've worked on before. What's your favorite one?
Okay, so I had a show that was like American Idol. We didn't bring it to fruition. Some of these were developed completely out, and they were pitched and meaning like they went to the executives at the networks and so forth, and they just never made it, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, I consulted on a couple of shows, um, reality shows and such, but so that was like a music driven show, which music obviously is kind of how I started my career. I always say I turned my hobby into my career. So that's what the music was all about. And so that was kind of like one of my favorites. Another was the racing. I spent a couple of years on the infield with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and some of the older names that are around. In fact, Dale's got a show, a 10-part series, I believe, that's going to be on, I want to say, I don't know if it's Netflix. I think it is. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's about to come out. But, and then I did a biopic once again, surprisingly with the music. Carl Perkins, which nobody here would really know, but he did Blue Suede Shoes. He wrote it for Elvis Presley.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, his version was bigger than Elvis's. Nobody realizes that. And Carl Perkins influenced the Beatles to even go back further almost. They had an album with Matchbox and so forth, George Harrison, and what he was a big influence. But the thing was cool about that, Matt, was because of licensing. Okay, where you basically get the rights to songs and things. So Paul McCartney's publishing company owned all the Carl Perkins songs. So Paul McCartney, I had a letter from him. I had a letter from the Elvis Presley estate. I had a letter from the Carl Perkins estate. I had a letter from the Johnny Cash estate. These were all involved in this project, and then Bruce Springsteen's musical director was Carl Perkins' musical director. And at the time, I had soft offers from Justin Timberlake to play Carl Perkins' brother and Ryan Gosling to play Carl Perkins.
Huh.
And they were going to redo Blue Suede Shoes and make a pop version that you would hear on radio. That was like one of my favorite projects. It just went south. I mean, if anybody here has ever heard of Walk the Line, which was like the Johnny Cash story, it took them 20 years to make that movie. Biographies, biopics, getting the rights to things is so complex. The business side and finance side of anything, and this includes gaming, it can be astronomical, and then it just like can fall apart, which it did fall apart, unfortunately. But those are, I mean, there hasn't been too many things that I haven't loved. I love animation. I love a lot of different things, Matt. But as you know, it's like, but there were some where kind of labors of love, and I one thing that is a common thread in pretty much everything I do, there's going to be a kick-ass soundtrack, music, something music involved in whatever it is I'm doing.
Absolutely. So, before I open the floor for questions from the people that are watching, future projects. I believe me and you are going to be involved in a major gaming project that I've been very held back on talking about on your orders, but I'm sure that you could probably add some excitement to it more than I could.
Well, I mean, there's several things. I mean, one is kind of like sort of like an expansion of what we're doing here. Having celebrity-driven interviews, and I hate using the word celebrity. How about just like
public figure people, is what I use.
Public figure, yeah, because it's more like people that that might be interesting, right? I mean, because not everybody has to be in a movie or a television show, but let's just call it high profile people. I mean, it could be an influencer too. I mean, if they're like if there's a reason for them to exist. But besides that, I mean, there's an event that we are looking to do, and it will be in a major production, a major theater complex, if you want to call it, and so forth. And it's going to, I don't know, let's call it like a Super Bowl of gaming.
The Super Bowl of gaming. I like that. I think they're going to like that too.
I mean, I just keeping it simple here rather than getting down and specific. So, kind of like, but putting some theatrics behind it. I mean, when I say theatrics, it's like everything I know that I'm involved in. And Matt appreciates this. I know you appreciate it. Is like anything that happens that I'm involved in or whatever has to have something that is exciting, something that where there's something going on. Let's face it,
Well,
gaming, right? I mean, there's a lot of movement, a lot of activity, a lot of visual, a lot of sound, a lot of things that are going on. That's what attracts a gaming audience. And so, how smart would it be to make the event that's kind of like the Super Bowl of gaming, let's call it, to have the same kind of feel? I mean, it would be, I mean, I think some of these gaming events, nothing personal, but I think they're dull. Just sitting in a seat and watching somebody play on a screen sometimes can be dull.
You just described my Twitch. that's
No,
why that's why I bring it in interviews. I think they're sick of him sitting here in the seat. But anyway, please
no,
continue.
no, not like this, Matt. I'm talking about if you did this in a 2,000 seat arena. I mean, you
I'm up
got
for
it,
that.
whether, if you picture it, think of it like a concert, flames and all kinds of shit going on. I mean, you want to entertain. I'm just saying,
Pure chaos is what I would call it.
yeah,
They would
I'm
love
just
that.
trying to say, make it live like, a hologram or something. Make it an event. Make it lifelike. That's what I mean. I'm not saying this is boring. I'm saying
I was just picking up
this
myself.
I know. I'm saying this is appropriate, right? This is what it is, right? But I'm saying but if you're going to do something, and you're going to people are going to be sitting in seats and they're going to be paying to see it and also participating. Well, hell, man, make it an event. Make it a big deal. So anyway, that's coming down the pipe and so forth. And for me, I mean, I've got some. I'll just say that I'm working on a series, a couple of different potential television series and movies that may be streamers for Netflix, Amazon, Paramount Plus, places like that. And then I'm also involved in something that's going to be revolutionary in the technology realm, which I think I was just lightly touching on. A lot of my friends started off, as did I, actually in technology. So it's a really good fit, actually. I used to call it, Matt, technotainment.
Technotainment. All right. Well, I'm gonna open up the floor to the questions here. Raven says he's got a question for you.
Okay.
And I believe Willow will have one too. Won't you, Willow? Miss Chaos. There's a bit of a delay on the stream, so you'll have to give him a second to type it up.
That's all right.
But I know they're loving this concept, like having Simon and you and Antonio and the Not So Distant Future and Cindy and...
Yeah, I think it's really cool to have people on, and also too, it'd be really nice too if they share the passion for gaming. But either way, I mean, it's like, why not make it something more than just gameplay?
Yeah,
gives it a little something. You've been everybody understands the term outside the box, meaning like think outside of like what's normal. And I think that's what you're trying to do here, Matt, is do something. And I've never known you to do stuff that's normal. And I mean that as I mean that as a compliment, of course.
But just so you guys don't know, me and Frank are old friends. We've known each other for 10 years now. But Raven has asked...
Which feels like forever. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
With me it does. Raven asks, what advice do you have for someone wanting to get into voice acting?
Very good question. And that's something too that I have I've actually coached a lot of voiceover actors. I've done voiceovers myself. So are you talking about like for animation, commercials, everything in particular, that type of thing?
I'll give him a second to catch that up.
And it's funny because my wife, who will be on next week, Karen, has done a lot of voiceover characters and commercials in addition to her television acting in theater.
He says a little bit of everything. He doesn't know where to start.
Okay, well, I mean, the most important thing is to probably work with your voice. Get a good there used to be a book. What was it? The human voice. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but anyway, I'm just going to assume I'm going to take this from like very simple forward, meaning like you want to make sure that just like as if you were a singer or a performer, you want to make sure that you definitely have your instrument is your voice. So in this case, you want to make sure that, between the breath control and everything. I mean, I don't want to get real technical, but let's just assume that you've got that all together and everything. You can start off with some simple equipment and so forth. A lot of software and is fairly inexpensive. So, I mean, it's very competitive. That is true. But what you can do is you can practice, and maybe you might know somebody. Find out. You could probably place some ads or something like if somebody was like, "Hey, you might offer up your services like for free, for instance, or something like that. If they will give you some. I mean, I always usually discourage people from. I mean, I get really tired of the industry has a tendency to going like, "Hey, if you'll do this for us, it'll be great for your." They use the term "real," meaning like your
Yeah.
demo or something, and it's just kind of like, but they abuse the situation. But in this case, I think if you volunteer your services, once you feel comfortable, then I think that you might be able to narrate something that somebody could hear and put together, whether they're character voices, whether it's for commercial or for animation. I mean, you might even take a class or two if you really want to, and look in your area and see if somebody is offering some kind of inexpensive training. Some of them even do them on Zoom and so forth as well. So, you don't
And
necessarily have to
his
go where
his
they are.
response was to dive in with both legs and say, "Hey, Matt, I offer my services for an Ascension commercial."
Yeah,
uh,
there you go. There you go. Well, I mean, it's like, and the most important thing is that you got to put energy into it. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like, sounding like you've had 5 cups of coffee. I mean, or like 5 Red Bulls. I mean, it's like you want to have energy, but you want to, think of it as acting, okay, and try to be yourself because a lot of times, especially with voicing, I don't know what it is, but somebody will put their earbuds in or their headset or whatever the hell they put it on. They get in front of the mic and they start trying to sound like this. And I mean, unless you're doing a character, that calls for it. I mean, you want to be conversational. It just depends on what it is that you're doing. But I think I would like look for people that, I mean, you could intern. Okay. I interned for somebody that was doing voiceovers, even though I had a radio background at the time, because I wanted to get into voiceovers. And he was known as Mr. Voice. In fact, I just posted him on my Facebook. He just recently passed away and so forth. He was one of my mentors, and I used to work in his studio. And he used to do all the big television networks and movies and things like that. And he was a great friend, and and he kind of, so having a mentor, I think, is important. But dive in, don't over prepare. That would be my recommendation.
okay, and one last question from Willow. Hi, Sky. What's up, sweetheart? Um, Working in your business, do you have a favorite person group you've gotten to meet, or perhaps the most unique person group you got to meet? Well, the most unique was me. I mean, that's a given.
Use it, yeah. Person or group or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, any personal group that was unique to you.
Oh God. Wow. Okay, just as a precursor, and I'm not a million years old, by the way. I just started very young. But I've been to probably 1,000 concerts, and I probably have met everyone from people that my parents listened to Ice Cube, to frickin' all the boy bands and girl groups and all this other stuff. But I'm just trying to think the most unique. I'll give you two really cool experiences. How's that? Because
Perfect.
I've met people I mean, I can't even tell you some of the craziest scenarios. I'll save it for another discussion, but not to be long-winded, I'll make it really simple. Okay, so two things. One is they're a little bit older people. Elton John's one of them. So it was really cool when I was in radio. I was young, and so him and Bernie Taupin, his collaborator. I mean, if you saw the recent Rocket Man not too long ago, you'll know a little bit about Elton John. Anyway, I was in a room with 100 people, and he was literally playing the piano, and I had my elbow on the piano. So I was like right there. And I mean, I had seen him a couple of times, and it was just like freaking, like, I can't tell you. And then another time, once again, another old timer, but Tony Bennett. I'm Italian, so you can imagine Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, all the old, whatever. Anyway, so he is an artist. And so the record label was like, here, get in the car. And I get into this limo in New York, and it's Tony Bennett. And then we take off. And I'm like, so I ended up introducing him at a convention, and we were talking about architecture because I liked architecture and whatever. We were talking about Manhattan and a bunch of other stuff. And he has a sketchbook he keeps. And so he was sketching, he was drawing something while we were in there. And when I left, he handed me a watercolor that he did of Frank Sinatra, and then it was autographed by him. And so that was pretty cool. But I mean, I've met people on all sides of the spectrum, and there's been a lot of really, really, really cool experiences that I've had.
All right, so in the last couple of minutes we have left, is there anything you want to add? Any more advice you can give to our young aspiring voice actors here, or? And we lost him. Sorry, technical issues with Zoom. Bear with me. Please hold. There we go. I think I got you back.
Yeah, and it was really funny. I almost, as they say in radio, hit the post. If it had been just a minute shorter, I would have cut out right when Zoom cut out.
But so anyway, yeah. Hey, Twisted, what's up, buddy? So Frank's back. So in the last couple of minutes that we have you left, if you any more advice you can offer anyone, or hey, Kyle, what's up, bud? Any more advice or future projects you can quickly talk about, or I'll give you the floor for 5 minutes. And
okay, well, I'll try to make it quick, but I mean, God, some of the stuff is so generic, really. But if you really want something, you just got to go for it, right? Don't spend your time preparing for something. Meaning, like, I mean, obviously know what you're doing, but I mean, don't let things get into, or get around people that are like doing things, you know what I mean? So that you can, at least if you don't yourself, if you feel a little bit like non-confident, be around people in particular, if you can, that have and learn. I mean, there is absolutely nothing wrong with, I mean, I've had dozens of mentors in my life, different stages of my career. Never too young, never too old. I mean, really generic stuff here, but if you're around people that are kind of doing what it is that you want to do, I mean, I think that is kind of cool. And I think that there's no stupid questions, there's no stupid ideas. There's just better ones. Sometimes you have to kind of come to that conclusion yourself. But like, man, just go for it. That's what I did. I mean, I started in radio in the engineering department and I had no background in engineering. So I'm sure I pissed off probably a lot of really young, you know, school age, engineer, up and coming engineers, kids that wanted to like go into. And I just went in there and I said, well, I sold myself. I just did. I said, I'll do whatever. And let me tell you what, also be careful because I ended up washing the van, getting coffee. I mean, I had some really glamorous, non-glamorous things that I did, man. I was like a gopher is the term that they used to use. Go, and you know what the term gopher is? It's
Yes,
not like
go for this and go for that.
go for this, go for that.
Yeah, it's a Hollywood term.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, volunteering, all this other stuff. But I mean, but I got paid and whatnot, and I started in engineering, and then I made the change over to the music side because that was my golden ticket, if you want to use a term, shall we say. But yeah, just go, just really seriously. I mean, whatever you can think of, just do it, or at least be around people that have like minds and so forth, and don't let anybody shut you down. I mean, I know this stuff all sounds really kind of basic and maybe even somewhat boring, but it really is. Sometimes you just got to go for it. And I know when I've had my best success, and that doesn't mean just money or fame or anything, it just means where I feel like I'm doing what I really want to do or I'm having fun, is when I just go for it. Really just literally go for it. And as far as for the future and stuff like that, I'm sure that the technology is kind of where I'm headed more so. So, I'm still going to be doing some creative things. I'll be doing creative things on the tech side as well. But I'm going to be really excited to be talking about that in the not too distant future.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely going to have you back when that starts taking off. And obviously, as the gaming projects we're working on start to unfold, we're definitely going to bring you back in with you and Utah, who's working on us with it, and give everyone updates, because I'm really excited. I can't wait to find out what happens after Friday's meeting.
Yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. I mean, it's like, it's gonna be cool. I mean, it should feel like you're going to a concert or like something like that. I mean, everything, whatever. I mean, whatever your mind can conceive, why not? Why not do something that's different? Everybody's trying to do something that's like everybody else, and then sometimes you just have to do something that's different.
Yeah, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's making it run smoother.
Sometimes it's very simple, right? I mean, it's like that's the whole thing. It's like, oh, I can't think of anything. It's such a big, whatever, and it's just like don't let it like, what's the word, intimidate you. Sometimes it's like the slightest little thing you come up with. It's like, hey, I thought of whatever. I'll tell you one. I'll leave you with one last story, and it was when I was at Hitmakers Magazine. So radio stations would call in program directors. They're the ones that added the music directors added music to the radio stations. Record companies wanted their songs played and so forth, and so they would be spending money advertising in our magazine, and they wanted to get to these programmers or these people, these DJs and so forth that were calling in to our magazine. So they would call in and they would report what was popular that week, what's hot, whatever, play, like a Hot 100, Top 40, whatever in their city, their radio station. And they used to be put on hold, and there was just like dead silence. And I'm like, why do we have dead silence on our hold button? And so I'm like, why don't we sell the hold button? And they were like, what? And I said, yeah, why don't we take whatever, if they have like a new, if they have a new Drake song that's coming out this week or whatever like that, let's go to the record label, let's get Universal to go ahead and buy it for $1,000 a week to promote their artist. So when they were put on hold, that song would be playing. And that's like advertising, just like you see on television or anything or any other place like that. So anyway, so I sold the hold button for $1,000 a week. we made $50,000 because we were open 50 weeks, 2 weeks off. But the magazine made $50,000, which is pretty cool back in the day. It's still pretty cool today too, by the way. But we made $50,000 for just putting people on hold.
Hear that, Raven? I need your voice so I can make money putting people on hold with you doing your voiceover.
That's thinking outside. That is thinking outside the box. See how stupid that sounds?
It does.
It almost sounds like a really dumb idea. But they certainly didn't mind making 50 grand.
That's interesting. Well, I want to say again, thank you, Frank, for coming on tonight, and thank you so much for sponsoring our cluster, Ascension Gaming, as well. We really appreciate it, and the shout out on the website. And I know that we're going to be growing that brand as well in the future. So,
all right. Well, happy gaming.
I will. I've just been. I'm actually involved in the ACL tournament, so instead of them just sitting here watching me. Instead of sitting here watching me just grind out materials, they've been listening to you, and so it's actually really good.
God. So in other words, they're sleeping. Okay, I got
it. The tedious stuff is good. The tedious stuff. And
all right, Matt. Well, everyone have a happy gaming. I'll be around again.
And I appreciate you guys, and thank you, Mr. Frank. I look forward to speaking to Karen next week.
All right, sounds good, bud.
Have a good night.
Talk to you guys. All right. Later.